The craziest philosophical theories explained in 14 minutes.
Boltzmann brain. Boltzmann brain is a thought experiment that suggests that given enough time, a self-aware brain could randomly form in the universe due to quantum fluctuations. This hypothetical brain would have memories and perceptions of really living in a structured reality, even though it is just a temporary, random occurrence in a chaotic universe. This theory asks if it's more likely for the universe to exist, with all its complexity, or for a single brain with false memories to appear randomly. If the latter is more probable, it implies that everything you experience might just be a brief hallucination by a Boltzmann brain. Solipsism.
What? So they're saying that I'm a brain floating in a universe, just temporarily perceiving my life, and I don't actually exist.
Solipsism. Solipsism is the idea that only your
Solipsism.
own mind can be known for sure to exist. According to this theory, the outside world, other people, objects, and events cannot be definitely proven to exist beyond your own perception.
These ones, like, these theories are always cool to think about, but they don't actually hold, like, any reasonable grounding. It's just more so like, you physically can't prove to me that you're conscious because you're not me. And this is what I was going into the other day, where I was like, no matter what thing, no matter how close somebody is to you, they will never actually understand who you are. They'll never get you. They'll get you as well as they can, but unless somebody can physically step in your shoes and be the person that you are, they will not be able to understand the person that you are, if that makes sense. So, like, if I sit there and ask you or somebody that I'm close to, like, hey, prove to me that you're conscious, even your wife? No, your wife, not gonna fucking your wife, your mom, your dad, no matter how close, your own mom will never understand how it is to be you, fully. They may have been, if you lived, or your twin, you could have a twin, and I would say that's the closest example of somebody that's understood you. Twins can get each other more than anybody else because they're genetically identical and they've lived basically the same life. But even then, you as a twin cannot understand your other twin in its entirety. Conjoined twins. More so, yeah, because they live in the same body. But even then, they have different brains. They have different brains, different conscious experience. How they contemplate, the other one can't experience. They're not telepathically communicating. They're not experiencing everyone's thought through and through.
This is because all experiences are subjective, meaning they are understood through your individual mind. So while you may see and interact with the world, solipsism questions if the world actually exists on its own, or if it's all just created by your mind. You have no way to know. The teletransportation paradox. The teletransportation paradox is a thought experiment that explores the implications of teleportation and
oh my god, if you break up my is this the one where it's like, if you break up my atoms and teleport me to a different time and space, is that still me, or am I dead and this machine just created an entirely identical version of me that has the exact same memories as me, but I cease to exist?
Identity. Imagine a teleportation device that scans a person's entire body and mind, mapping every atom and neural connection. The device then transmits this information to another location, where a new identical body is constructed, perfectly replicating the original person, including their memories and personality. The paradox arises when considering what happens during this process. Is the person who arrives at the destination the same individual who entered the teleportation machine?
No. No, because you didn't travel, and they broke apart your atoms and rearranged them. Matter could not be created or destroyed, rather transformed, but they transformed you into something else. It's literally the same. No, let me put it this way. If I have a clone of you, say I spawn a clone of you right now, and it stands next to you, and that clone has every experience that you've ever had, looks like you, acts like you, is you. You both talk and act exactly the same. Is that person you? No. The only you that you are is the you that is currently perceiving. And so while there would be another you that is perceiving that theoretically would be you because you went from one place to another, the machine rearranged that person and dearranged you. So then the person that's reformed wouldn't actually be you. It would be an identical copy of you that believes that it is you. You would die if you stepped into a teleportation machine. The you on the other side would be a new you that is basically brainwashed into thinking that it is you because it rearranged every form of you to a T. It would be a new person. It would be a new person. From an outsider perspective, you would be fine, right? Like, if for you, I don't know you. Say your name's John. You step into the teleportation machine. I'm your friend. You're John. I've known you my whole life. You go, boom, teleport to me. You're going to talk to me, and I'm going to go, yeah, that's John. But the John that I knew is dead. The John that I knew is no longer perceiving, and it doesn't exist anymore. The second he got disassembled in that machine, he has died. And there is a new person that is cloning him, like Rick and Morty. Like, if you went to an alternate universe, like in Rick and Morty, spoiler, Rick and Morty kill their entire fucking family. Their family dies. They ruin the universe, and every single person on that earth dies. They then go, how do we fix this? We can't. So they teleport to another universe where they have both just died, and it's identical in every other way other than the fact that Rick and Morty in that universe are dead. They bury their bodies and replace them, and they live with their family. To them, those people are all the same, but they know that their actual family and everyone they knew is dead. So it'd be the same way. Even though you're teleporting, the you that got crumpled up died.
If the original person is disassembled at the point of departure, is that person effectively killed? If so, then the new person created at the destination, while identical in every way, is technically a different individual.
It would be a different individual, but they wouldn't know it. They would have no way of knowing it. Because even if you talk to them and you're like, do you remember that? They're going to say yeah, because at the moment of this guy disappearing, they still have that memory, but it's just implanted into them.
The egg theory.
Oh, God. This one fucked me up when I watched this the first time.
The egg theory is a thought experiment that suggests that every person who has ever lived or ever will live is actually the same being, experiencing life in different forms and at different times. The theory proposes that when a person dies, they are reincarnated as another person without any memory of their previous lives. This process continues until that being has lived every human life in existence. According to the theory, the universe exists as an egg, a place for this single being to grow and mature through the experience of living many lives. Once all lives have been lived, the individual reaches a higher state of consciousness and becomes like a god, completing their spiritual evolution.
I like the idea of this, but I more so think that the universe is an everlasting God that, like, if I imagine what God is, I just relate God to the universe. Like, just not necessarily conscious, but an unconscious group of matter. The universe is God, God is the universe. Not really thinking, it just exists. I think we exist as a means for the universe to understand finite time and individuality. I don't know if that makes sense. It's really hard to put this into words. The universe can't experience time because if you're something that has always existed and will always exist, time doesn't matter for you because you'll always be here. But you can understand time in a different way if you're able to live and die, because then time matters. Does that make sense? So you're trying to say we'll all be Joe Biden at some point. Well, in the egg theory, yeah. In the egg theory, you'll be me and I am you. We're all... In the egg theory, everyone watching this stream is me and I'm you. We're all just living different lives at different times without the memory of who we actually are. So we're all just talking to each other. Well, we are all talking to each other, but we're just one person talking to themselves. I'm just entertaining myself. I'm not entertaining you guys. I'm entertaining 5,000 of me.
Just as the universe, in this theory, is designed for growth and evolution, so too is every business. In my opinion, you can't really manage to do so efficiently without today's sponsor, Odoo. The omnipotence paradox. The omnipotence paradox is a thought experiment that challenges the concept of omnipotence, or unlimited power.
So I would be having sex with myself, yes. You'd be birthing yourself, having sex with yourself. You'd be killing every other being that is you. It's basically to show a level of equal morality. The egg theory is really useful in trying to teach people to be good people, because every bad thing you do, you'll do to yourself. And a lot of other religions actually believe that in terms of reincarnation, but not in the sense that every living human is the same soul. Just that there are souls that can be reincarnated and reborn. But yes, like the main example is like, if the egg theory were true, you would be Hitler, but you would also be every single person that Hitler killed. So it equals it out. Every good thing you've done to yourself. Every bad thing you've done to yourself. So if you are a bad person, you're effectively just inflicting pain upon yourself, which nobody would want to do.
Asks whether an all-powerful being like God could create a stone so heavy that even they cannot lift it. The dilemma arises because both possible answers seem to limit the being's power.
Well, yeah, God is all-powerful and all-knowing, and that's just in main religion gods. Like, just in monotheistic religion, God is all-powerful, but God can't create something that he can't move.
If the being can create the stone...
But he can create anything, so how the fuck does that work?
They cannot lift it, which means there's something they cannot do. This implies a limit to their power, contradicting the idea of being all-powerful. On the other hand, if they
That's dumb, not gonna lie. No, it makes perfect sense. If God's all powerful, how can he create something that he can't that is too much for him to move?
cannot create such a stone,
Because if he's physically all powerful, that means he's able to make anything, but he can't. Because he can't make something that he can't move, because he can move anything, because he can do anything.
this also indicates a limitation, as they are unable to do something that should be within the scope of omnipotence. But God might be over logic itself. Or one might say that by omnipotent, we mean a being that can do anything that is logically possible. Being all-powerful doesn't mean doing logically impossible things like creating a square circle. It means having power over everything that exists. Logical impossibilities, like a square circle, aren't real things that can exist, so it remains just a cool debunked thought experiment.
But isn't the idea of that weird square, isn't that just supposed to be another dimension, which has been like mathematically proved? They just use that as a means to try and show it because it can't be physically perceivable for a three-dimensional figure like us. Like, it's really, like, other dimensions are mathematically a tesseract or whatever. Mathematical math tries to prove other universes, other dimensions. But it's not something that you're able to physically perceive because you're not able to be in that other dimension. You're stuck in the dimension that you've lived in, and you have to live the life and the perception that you've been given. The best example of that is if you were born two-dimensional and you were a flat square, you're only able to see front, back, left, and right. You're not able to look up and down. But if a three-dimensional figure were to enter your universe, you would only see them in your two-dimensional space. You wouldn't understand where they go when they leave. You can't understand the idea of looking up and down because you've only understood looking front, right, or front, back, left, and right. So in the same way, something that's a higher dimension than us, we can't perceive because we only know looking in the dimensions and seeing in the way that we can. Everything in a higher dimension can see everything below it, but nothing higher than it.
Experiment. Antinatalism. Antinatalism is a philosophical position that argues against giving birth, suggesting that it is morally wrong to bring new individuals into existence because life itself inherently involves suffering, pain, and hardship. So it is better not to create new lives that will inevitably face these challenges. One key argument in
Literally the plot of AOT.
antinatalism is that coming into existence exposes individuals to more suffering than joy, making it not worth it. Additionally, some antinatalists point out the environmental and ethical implications of overpopulation, arguing that it contributes to suffering not just for individuals, but for society.
Well, I think we're parasites to a degree. Because if you're at the bottom of a food chain, you are working as a means of supply for other things. We fucking kill, eat, destroy, and rebuild every fucking thing we touch. Like, we are ruining Earth. We're killing things. And, like, that, like, the point of life is to experience as much as you can, whether or not it's good as bad, you only get one chance. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about, though. I'm saying that we are, in a word, like, in the general sense of what a parasite is, we're invasive species and we're invasive parasites. We have built and gone things and we have built things and gone places that we shouldn't have gone, and now we take over that area. And now we kill everything around it, ruin its natural environment, and live there and stay there. Then where's our habitat? Historically, I mean, it depends. But we have been such a successful species that we have been able to spread everywhere on Earth, basically. Where we would naturally be ingrained to live would be like Africa. Like, that's at least where Homo sapiens derived. But humans in general have been capable of living basically anywhere that's hospitable in terms of temperature and climate. Outside of that, it's just like, I'm more speaking the fact that we've been able to like live in like mountains 10,000 feet in the air with no natural water, no fucking food growing capabilities, and we're just shipping places one place to another. Like, you're able to access shit where you live now that isn't able to be grown or used where you live because we're able to transport shit. Like, we've evolved to basically we have taken over Earth. We have conquered our planet. Not in the sense of water yet, because the ocean is entirely undiscovered, basically. But, like, we deserve Earth? Why? Why? Isn't that a little selfish to assume? Why do we deserve Earth? I think we've won it. I don't think we deserve it. Because we're the smartest? Yeah, but that's not deserving. Deserving, we've just won it. You don't, just because we were the smartest doesn't mean we deserve Earth. It just means we got it.
Society as a whole and the planet. You are not free. This theory about the
Every other species would have done the same. Yeah, you're fucking 100% right. I'm not saying what we're doing is immoral. I'm not saying I agree with the idea of antinatalism. I'm saying I just think that if you actually look at it, we're like parasites of Earth. We have taken over the planet.
You are not free. This theory about the absence of free will from human life suggests that individuals have the ability to make choices and take actions based on their desires. However, they do not have the ability to control the will behind any of their actions, thus making them a slave to their own desires. In order to prove this theory, the following thought experiment is proposed. If you're deciding between which ice cream flavor to pick—
I say this all the fucking time. I usually do apple or banana with my chat. If you're picking an ice cream flavor, like I'm going chocolate, and I have the freedom of contemplation after that for my next choice to decide if I want something else. But if we have to go back and repeat this scenario every single time in the exact moment that we're in, you'll never sway your answer. Every single time you would choose the answer that you most desire because it's the one that all of your other choices and perceptions and things you've experienced have led up to this moment to where you're picking vanilla or chocolate.
Pick chocolate or vanilla and end up deciding that you genuinely want chocolate. There is absolutely nothing you could do in that situation to change that desire, unless an external factor that you also cannot control is involved, such as finding out that vanilla ice cream is cheaper or that it's not as unhealthy.
Well, yeah, because you have the freedom to contemplate the things that you've experienced in life, but since your birth, you had almost no control over a lot of the things that made you who you are. You had no control over your name. You had no control over where you were born, what school you went to, what you ate for a lot of your life, how much money you make, what job you're usually going into, because all of those things change depending on the things that you have access to and you're given from a time where you're not really conscious. And then even when you are, those things impacted your personality to where they've affected you, not in a free will sense, to where you're no longer the person that you thought you were freely. Everything you are has been made and impacted by another person. I've also thought about this too. Whenever I'm like alone, it's so fucking weird that like you really can't do anything without having some sort of impact that has been caused by another man. Human, not man. Even if you're sitting alone in your room, that room was built by another person. The clothes you're wearing was built by another person. The thing you're watching was used by another person, made by another person. You are always involved with someone else. Even if you go into the middle of the woods and you're alone, the clothes on your back, the things you have, all of the only way that you could literally be alone is if you fucking wandered into an area that has never been touched by people in like the Amazon rainforest butt naked and made everything from scratch yourself. And even then you have the knowledge from other people that have been involved in your life up to your decision of making that decision, in which case you're not even conscious in free will when you made the decision to go into the fucking Amazon rainforest and be naked like you're on the Naked Afraid show and try and live alone, because all the things that you lived up to that point to make you make that decision, you had no choice over.
This shows that the only way for you to do anything is by wanting to do it, which we already determined you cannot control, or by being forced to do it, which you obviously cannot control either, thus proving that free will does not exist. Ship of Theseus.
I just go along with that shit though. Like you got like there's a point where you accept that and you're like, damn. Okay, and then just move on.
Ship of Theseus is a philosophical thought experiment that questions the nature of identity and change. It begins with a ship owned by the hero Theseus.
This is like the first fucking... In most colleges or most philosophy classes, like the first thing you're going to talk about is the ship of Theseus. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's like an easy philosophical topic to get across before you delve into like deep shit.
And over time, as the ship sails, its wooden parts decay and are replaced with new ones. Eventually, every original part is replaced, which leads to the central question. Is the fully restored ship still the ship of Theseus?
Yes, because it's the name that you associate with it. It's physicality. Physically, it is not the same ship, but by name and association, it is. I'm not the same person physically. Your cells, you're an entirely new person cellular-wise every, 7 years? But you're still you, right? You're not the same person you were in the sense of consciousness or general, personality. But you're still you in the sense of your physical body and your name calling. Somebody still knows you as Evan or Ethan or Joe or Sarah or whatever your fucking name is.
To complicate matters, suppose the original...
You just disproved your teleporting point. I didn't disprove my teleporting point. Because in that sense, you're still... See, Trey, and this is where I'm gonna fold your fucking hand, buddy. You're still the same person perceiving. You're the same you're the consciousness that is perceiving something. You're still in the standpoint where you are the individual observer, even if you are not the same observer that you were 7 years ago. You're still the individual person consciously inhabiting this physical body that is observing something, which makes it different than the ship, because the ship is entirely new parts, whereas you have slowly mended different parts rather than one full blank, right? Teleporting, rearranging all your atoms instantaneously to a new person. Every 7 years, you're new cells, but you're not every 7 years, all your cells instantly die and then a new you is born. Over time, your cells die. Your cells are dying right now. Your cells are dying and you're making new cells right now every second of every day. There's millions of cells that are dying and ones that are being born because they're splitting constantly. And over time, when you look back at it, yes, 7 years ago, you weren't the same you that you are now because there's a fully different set of cells that have existed. But through that time, you have still maintained that same conscious observation of the world around you and have been the same perceiver.
Original parts are gathered
A clone of you would not be the same perceiver because they would be inhabiting a different body.
and reassembled into a ship. Now, there are two ships, one composed entirely of new materials, and one made of the original components. This scenario showcases how definitions are artificial and not as stable as we think. Does the ship
What if I change my personality and my name? Then you'll be known differently by other people. To them, you'll be a different person, like somebody going into witness protection program. But to everybody else, you're a different person, but to you, you're still the same individual. You're a different person in terms of personality traits and all of those other things. So who you act as may be different, right? Whether or not you're a good or a bad person can change. But you, as an individual, are still the same perceiver that you once were.
retain its identity despite having all its parts replaced? Which ship is the true ship of Theseus? Ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is the philosophical theory that individuals should always act in their own self-interest and have no regard for the consequences of their actions on others. This theory asserts that actions are only morally right if they benefit the individual.
I have BPD, incorrect because I am many. Bipolar disorder or multiple personality disorder?
Performing them. Emphasize ethical egoism. Ethical egoism is the philosophical theory that individuals should always act in their own self-interest and have no regard for the consequences of their actions on others. This theory asserts that actions are only morally right if they benefit the individual performing them, emphasizing that values like sympathy and altruism were an idea constructed by weak individuals who could not assert themselves in society. So they
Yeah, that's some idiot-ass shit. You can make that argument in terms of the noble senses and everything with, like, what Friedrich Nietzsche would say about, like, morality and how good and evil changed over time in terms of their definition. But the idea of what is morally right being only something that benefits yourself is fucking stupid, because usually what benefits the group benefits the individual, because you have to rely on other people in modern society to succeed.
had to make up an entire moral system to justify.
Going back to what I was saying, where you can never actually get away from people in general. You will always be involved with one person or another. The mic that I'm talking through, the fucking camera that you see me through, everything has been made by another individual. Regardless of whether or not I own it, somebody took part in it. And if I start fucking over those people, then I fuck over myself.
Their incompetence. Ethical egoism argues that, like all other animals, we have a deep desire to secure our own survival, and we should not deny it or act against it, as it would be unnatural and damaging to do so. Furthermore, ethical egoists argue that by pursuing their own goals, individuals may also contribute positively to society, as their
I think this makes sense in terms of, like, war, where in, like, you know, ancient times where you would be forced to go fight for a king, you're fighting for somebody else's goals that'll end up getting you killed. So would that increase, like, world peace if it was used momentarily? Yeah. But if everybody was an ethical egoist and only cared about themselves in all times, everybody would just be assholes.
Furthermore, ethical egoists argue that by pursuing their own goals, individuals may also contribute positively to society, as their actions can lead to overall better outcomes for other people as well. Roko's basilisk. Roko's basilisk is a thought experiment suggesting that a future artificial superintelligence could be motivated to punish or torture individuals who knew about the possibility.
If your mom ate pigs while being pregnant, those atoms could turn into your brain structure and reincarnate into your conscious right now. You don't even remember anything, but your atoms experienced that life. Are we pigs? Well, they transformed, so they've lost the energy and the conscious capabilities they once had. So no, you wouldn't be that pig. You'd be a transformed version of that individual.
Of its existence, but did not actively help in bringing it into reality. The purpose of this punishment
Joe Bart was Jack Doherty in another universe. No, I would be Jack Doherty in this universe, but just not right now. Actually, right now, but not in the conscious sense. We would all be the same individual being post-death, but you have no recollection of it. So you're just constantly getting split into different bodies. I don't believe in the egg theory. I'm just explaining it.
punishment would be to incentivize.
How does that make sense? How does anything make sense? How does that make sense? The fuck you mean? It's like whether or not you believe it. It's just a theory. It's the same thing as like believing in God. Like you can't. How does it make sense? Well, you can't prove it. It's just an idea. It's whether or not you believe in it.
People to support its development. Essentially, the AI might create virtual simulations where those who fail to assist in its creation are tortured. Esse est percipi. It means that everything.
I need to rewind because I didn't fucking read this.
Roko's basilisk.
Oh, this is that shit where a computer is going to take over the world? Yeah.
The AI might create virtual simulations where those who fail to assist in its creation are tortured. Esse est percipi. It means that everything only exists if it's being perceived. For example, if you sit on a.
I fucking hate this. Yeah, your chair's hollow. And this follows in with the theory that our universe is actually in a computer from another life form that's higher than us, because it's really hard for a computer to be able to generate the entire universe, but it's a lot easier for the computer to only have to generate things that are actively being perceived. So your desk is actually hollow until you decide to cut into it, and there's nothing behind me until I decide to look behind me. So the only things that are actually being perceived or computed would be the things that you actively are perceiving. And there's no way to disprove it, because that's also like Schrodinger's cat. Like everything's both alive and dead. Not really. I think that's a little different. That's more like quantum theory.
A chair and stand up without looking at the chair has ceased to exist. Quantum immortality. Quantum immortality is a thought experiment stemming from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. This theory suggests that a conscious being cannot experience their own death because there exist alternate realities where they continue to survive. The core concept proposes that every decision or event creates multiple branches of reality. In life-threatening situations, there will always be at least one version of reality where the individual survives. Therefore,
yeah, if you're able to prove that there's an infinite number of universes with an infinite number of views that experience every possible thing that you could, there's always going to be a version of yourself in a given universe that lives forever.
When faced with danger, the individual's consciousness only perceives.
Because there's always a version of you that didn't die.
Outcomes in which they remain alive. As a result, quantum immortality implies that individuals would perceive themselves as immortal as they can never experience their own death. Philosophical zombies.
That's also like, some people perceive quantum immortality that you will never die because every version of you that would die, you won't consciously experience. I think it's more kind of understandable to say that there is a universe in an infinite set of universes where there's one you that does live forever.
Philosophical zombies are.
What about old age? Well, you can't die. Dying of old age isn't a thing. When somebody says you died of old age, you probably died of a heart attack. Like you died in your sleep. Your heart stopped, right? There's always a cause of death. The cause of death in the fucking mortician autopsy is never old age. They'll tell you, yeah, he died, complications due to old age, which is usually your heart stopping, or you had like an aneurysm or something like that. But there would always be a version of you that didn't die. Natural causes. Yeah, like natural causes of death.
Are hypothetical beings that look and act like humans but lack conscious experience. These being philosophical zombies. Philosophical zombies are hypothetical beings that look and act like humans but lack conscious experience. These beings behave exactly as humans do, but they have no inner life, no subjective feelings or thoughts. The thought experiment challenges materialism, which holds that consciousness can be fully explained by physical processes in the brain. If it's possible to imagine a being that is physically identical to a human but lacks consciousness, then consciousness might not be fully explained by physical states. Zeno's paradox.
Well, I think philosophical zombies I think that there's two different types of you that exist in your brain. You are one, kind of ever-forming individual, like a slime ball, but there's also an A and B version of you. There's a you that lives everyday life and experiences, very basic things like your school and your conversations and playing video games and other things that you kind of turn your brain off for, where you're just kind of living in the present. And then there's a type B of you that can physically understand and perceive the conscious universe and life and death and like deep shit. And there's a group of people that I think don't have B. I don't think that I'm better than anybody. I think the majority of people are able to experience genuine philosophical thought, but I think there are groups of people that don't think about anything meaningful their entire life, and they just live. They just don't care. And you might know one of them, right? You can't really tell, but like you probably have people that give a shit. You probably have people that in your life give a shit about specific things. For the person that said black people, ban them because you're just a fucking racist piece of shit. I'm talking about you now, specifically. The guy that said that, you're a philosophical zombie because you're actually not understanding what I'm saying or actually trying to relate to it. You're just trying to make a joke about it. And you might think that's funny, but I'm actually trying to get to you on a deeper level and say that, like, you making that joke at this time kind of shows that you don't understand what I'm saying. You're a philosophical zombie. You're just going to live your life and then die. And that's fine, you know, but it's like, whatever. Like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. I don't get it. It doesn't seem possible. What do you mean? Bro's saying he's mindless? I'm not saying he's mindless. I'm just saying he doesn't give a fuck about anything. Like, there's people that exist that just don't care. And that's fine, right? Like, live your own fucking life. But it's crazy to me that people can exist in the universe for a very niche and not niche, a very small amount of time and never once question, like, damn, dude, what the fuck is this? And they just exist. They enjoy their little things in the materialistic world. They only live in the present. They might be scared of death in a survivalistic sense just because they're animals, but not in a philosophical sense. Because you could be scared of dying in a pain physical way, and then you could be scared of dying in a genuine, I'm going to cease to exist type of way. Aren't we all NPCs? I think you transition between being NPCs and not being NPCs, and some people live in that NPC world for longer. I think you have to live in that world to have fun. I think you can think about why you exist and life and death and fear about it. And I think it's always good to think about those things, but they can also consume people and drive them crazy. And you'll see that in a lot of philosophers that go mad. I think living in the present's good because then you actually get to experience life. But at the same time, you do have to take times to like step back and actually get everything. But yeah, for the guy that was just racist there, like, come on, bro. Like, you're just being a dick. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, you're a philosophical zombie and like fucking insult you like that. But like, bro, like, I'm actually trying to make a genuine point, and instead of like you actually trying to listen to me, you're just like, black people, loser energy.
The thought experiment challenges materialism, which holds that consciousness can be fully explained by physical processes in the brain. If it's possible to imagine a being that is physically identical to a human but lacks consciousness, then consciousness might not be fully explained by physical states. Zeno's paradoxes. Zeno's paradoxes are a set of thought experiments from the Greek philosopher Zeno, who used them to argue that motion is impossible, or at least not what it seems. The most famous paradox is Achilles and the tortoise, which highlights the problems that come up when we think about dividing things into infinitely small parts. In this example, Achilles, a fast runner, is racing a tortoise, which is much slower. To make it fair, the tortoise starts ahead. Zeno argued that Achilles can never actually catch up to the tortoise because every time he reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a little bit further ahead. Imagine walking towards a destination. To reach it, you'd first have to walk halfway there, and to walk halfway there, you'd first have to walk a quarter of the way there, and so on, creating an infinite number of steps and causing you not to be able to reach your destination. Problem of induction. The problem of
yeah, but I don't know. Like, that's more of just like a stupid. I don't want to say I don't like talking about that stuff, but in the same way, you know how there's people that like only like even numbers or odd numbers? You can make the argument that like while 2 is an even number, it's the first even number, so it's an odd number. And then, okay, well, 4 is the second even number, so it's an even number of an even number, but it's also the second even number, so that makes it an odd number. Like, it's still just like, now we're just talking about fucking stupid shit for no reason.
Induction, introduced by David Hume, questions how we can justify our belief that the future will resemble the past. For example, we expect the sun to rise tomorrow because it has risen every day before. However, Hume pointed out that there's no logical guarantee this will always happen. Just because something has occurred many times doesn't...
There's no logical guarantee that that'll always happen, and I know I had to read David Hume fucking last year, but just because, yes, we are assuming that the sun will rise tomorrow because it's risen a million times prior, it is insanity to assume that it won't. If you lived your life doing things over and over, seeing the same repetitive result and not making a connection between them, that's insanity. And sometimes you could be making false connections between things, and that's where stereotyping results. But in the sense of like science, where you're testing things over and over and over and over again, if you were never to assume like, oh, if I combine ammonia and something, that'll make mustard gas, maybe if I combine it again, it won't. You're insane. Like, yes, there's a statistical chance that one day that'll never happen, but realistically, it's always going to.
Always happen. Just because something has occurred many times doesn't mean it will continue to do so. Any justification for this assumption relies on past experiences, which is circular reasoning. If we say that we trust induction because it has worked in the past, we are using induction to justify induction. This means that our reliance on patterns in the world is based more on habit than on solid logical grounds. The experience machine.
It's a base point to, like, I like Hume in how he tries to prove things from a very basic point without previous knowledge kind of biasing it. But at the same time, any philosopher that tries to prove shit a priori is still using bias because of the, back to what we're talking about, the fucking you are not free will shit, where you're still stuck in the same cyclical loop of other impact and biases put on your own life to where you physically can't make reasoning without previous knowledge prior to it. Same thing with, like, even just base inventions. The life you live, the cars we drive, the planes you take, all of those things are kind of ever evolving and getting better and better, but that might not even be the best possible thing that could exist in that way. Because we've grown up in a society with all of these other things that you're constantly taught about, you're never actually able to create something entirely unique that isn't just a reformation of something that already exists. Due to your own human perception, you're limited to that fact because you're only able to see and understand the world that's around you, but also through other experiments and things that exist already. Like, you use current math and current science to create new theories, new math, and new science, or understand it in a different sense, but you're biased based off of those things that already exist. Like, if the wheel was never created, it probably would in another way. I don't want to use the term the wheel. Say the iPhone was never created. It may have been created again, but in a better way or a different way. But there's no way of knowing that because we are already stuck historically knowing the knowledge of how phones were created.
The experience machine is a thought experiment proposed by philosopher Robert Nozick to challenge the idea that pleasure and happiness are the only things that matter in life. In this scenario, imagine a machine that can provide you with any experience you desire. You could feel immense joy, love, success, or any other pleasurable sensation, all while being completely unaware that these experiences are simulated. Nozick asks whether you would choose to plug into this machine for the rest of your life. Many people intuitively reject the idea of living in the experience machine, preferring real life with its struggles and hardships over an artificial existence filled with pleasure.
Well, and then that's more, artificial existence based on pleasure would be more attuned to like a drug addict, because you're artificially pumping your brain with serotonin and other things that make you happy, and you have no duality to actually appreciate the happiness that you're perceiving. Like, if you could always be pumped with serotonin, you would be happy, but you wouldn't be happy in the same sense of something as when you achieve it.
This rejection suggests that there are values beyond mere pleasure, such as authenticity, relationships, and the pursuit of genuine achievements. Moral anti-realism. Moral anti-realism is the philosophical view that there are no objective moral truths or values independent of human beliefs and opinions. According to this perspective, moral statements do not describe facts about the world, but are instead expressions of our attitudes or preferences. For example, if someone says, "Killing people is wrong," a moral anti-realist would argue that this statement doesn't reflect an absolute truth. Instead, it expresses a social consensus or a personal belief.
I like that. I think I can agree with that, because morally we would all agree that, yeah, killing people's wrong, but based on the society that you live in and where you are, where you're from, other moral truths change. And even throughout time, they change. And killing's wrong in what sense? Because sometimes killing people in self-defense isn't wrong because they were attacking you first. And then you get into a whole argument of like specifics depending on situation, but also just recognizing the fact that universally morality only applies to humans, and therefore universally morals can't exist. Definitive moral truths can't exist because they only apply to humans. They don't apply to everything, only us. And we didn't exist fucking 100,000 years ago, at least in the sense of modern humanity.
Belief. The idea is that actions like killing are
What about racism? When is that ever right? It's not. Racism is morally. I love when I go over this because then they try to be like, oh, so you're saying that racism is okay? Oh, so you're saying that murder's okay? No, I'm not saying that's okay. I obviously disagree with that. I'm saying, and also racism is just off of human flaw and then also stupidity on not recognizing that sometimes humans naturally stereotype things into groups because that's what you do logically as an individual trying to survive in the world. People that are racist are stupid and fail to see that just because you had a bad experience with one individual person that falls into a categorical group of an individual doesn't mean that all people fall into that category. Racists didn't as an example, racists were either raised to be racist. You're not born racist. Racists were either raised to be racist or had an experience that made them racist and failed to see that not all people are the fucking same. And so that's its own thing. Outside of that, morally, on racism, sexism, and whatever all these other things are, universally, we live in a society where morals need to exist for us to function, but on a universal level outside of Earth, morality has no fucking reign in anything. Because outside of humans, what the fuck matters on you stealing bread from a store? It has no meaning. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it only applies to us in specific settings.
not inherently good or bad. Rather, we label them as such based on cultural norms, society.
Is it racist if it's a statistical fact? If you're going to bring up that black people commit the majority, like if you're going to say that statistic, well, how does 1% of the population commit over half the crimes? Yeah, that's racist because you're not factoring in the knowledge that black people specifically have been shut down in society through slavery in modern times to where they live in more impoverished areas and more motivated to commit crimes. Black people genetically are not more likely to commit crimes. The areas that they're in the lives that they have, specifically in genuine groups, may up levels of crimes committed in general areas, but you're also not factoring in poverty and other things that motivate people to commit those crimes because of the society that they've lived in. Black people do not commit more crimes than white people on a personality basis. If you're going to say statistically they do, that is only because of impoverished areas in the lives that they've been given because of the implications that have been put on them through, what is it called? Systemic racism. They've been given a shit hand and therefore live in that shit hand and are more likely to commit crimes if they're impoverished, living in areas where they have to survive. If you were to take a group of people and put them in an impoverished area, they're likely to commit more crimes because they have not been helped in the way that they need to be. But if you meet a black guy on the street and you say to his face, he's more likely to commit a crime than you're fucking racist. Yes, whatever statistical fact you're going to throw is clouded by the idiocy of yourself to not recognize why that fact is in existence. Not because black people are genetically more likely to commit a crime. That's stupid to say that. You know it's stupid to say that.
Societal agreements or individual feelings. The paradox of
You're taking a fact at face value and not looking into why that fact is the way it is.
tolerance. The paradox of tolerance, created by philosopher Karl Popper,
Oh my God. Sorry I got off that. I'm not saying that's what you're assuming, by the way, but when you're saying, is it racist if it's statistically true? That's the most fucking racist shit anybody ever says. When they're like, oh, well, what about this? And they always bring up a stat of like black people committing more crimes. But then you're not going into income inequality and like other poor people commit more crimes than rich people. That's just like, and I'm not, then you have to go into general cities and groups and why these people are living the way they are, and it all roots back to them getting dealt a fucking shit hand hundreds of years ago, and now they can't get out of it. And even modern systems today.
the paradox of tolerance.
What about tax evasion? I'm talking about crimes in the sense that racist white people would get upset about. Rich people commit a lot of crimes. White rich people commit a lot of crimes. They commit a lot of white-collar crimes. And those people are going to use statistically violent crimes, which are usually the ones that they're going to try and pin on black people because they're fucking racist. But yeah.
The paradox of tolerance, created by
What are white-collar crimes? Tax evasion, fraud, insider trading, money laundering, shit like that. You're not hurting people or robbing or committing that, but you're using the system in an illegal way to benefit yourself.
the paradox of tolerance. The paradox of tolerance, created by philosopher Karl Popper, examines the limits of a tolerant society. Popper argues that a truly tolerant society should not tolerate intolerance, because if a society extends tolerance to those who are intolerant, it risks allowing intolerant groups to gain power and suppress the very freedoms that enable a tolerant environment. For example, if a tolerant society allows hateful ideologies to flourish, those ideologies could undermine the rights and freedoms of others, which creates a dilemma. If a society tolerates all viewpoints, including those that advocate for intolerance or violence, it may ultimately lead to the destruction of tolerance itself. Popper
I mean, that's just getting into the argument of fucking free speech right now, where people are like, oh, I should be able to say anything I want. Yeah, but you're also harming others depending on what you're saying.
suggests that in order to maintain a
Like, you have the right of free speech, but you also have the right to get your fucking ass kicked if you say some fucked up shit. Like,
tolerant society, it is necessary to take a stand against intolerant beliefs and actions.
like, that's why I hate those videos on Twitter. Like, that's the whole free speech thing. Like, yeah, I believe that you should have free speech. But in the same sense, like, I hate seeing those videos where it's just some motherfucker just spewing slurs at somebody, and the guy can't do anything because if he touches him, he's going to get arrested for assault, when the other guy's literally just spewing hate crime.
Even if this means limiting the freedom of those who follow them. The knowledge argument. The knowledge argument, often illustrated by the thought experiment.
Hate speech isn't free speech. If you look at a lot of instances where somebody, like, say, a white guy, walked up to a black dude and just started screaming the N-word at him, and the black guy punched him in the face and fucking broke his jaw, white guy's off scot-free, black guy's getting arrested.
Known as Mary's Room, was proposed by philosopher Frank Jackson, who created a scenario in which a girl named Mary is a brilliant neuroscientist who knows everything there is to know about the physical aspects of color, but she lives in a black and white room and has never experienced color herself. One day, Mary leaves her room and sees a red apple for the first time. The knowledge argument poses the question, does Mary learn something new about color when she sees the apple? Jackson argues that she does, because although Mary had all the scientific knowledge about how color perception works, her experience of seeing color for the first time provides her with new information that she could not have known while confined to the black and white room. This thought
I think that also just applies to the job world, too. Like, being able to learn something versus actually experiencing it yourself. Like, you might know how something works, but then when you actually have to fucking do it, it's a lot harder.
experiment suggests that there are non-physical aspects of knowledge, specifically the subjective experiences of perception. The infinite monkey theorem. The infinite monkey theorem is a thought experiment that suggests that given an infinite amount of time, a monkey
The monkey will write the entire works of Shakespeare.
randomly pressing keys on a typewriter or keyboard would eventually type out any given text, such as the complete works of William Shakespeare, helping to understand how long infinity really is. If you want to discuss this video or suggest
Well, that's not even a theory. That's just true. If you had something randomly, not even a monkey, if you just had a computer randomly press buttons for an infinite amount of time, they would type up every work that's ever been made. Because eventually, there would be a time where all the letters they typed in consecutive order matched word for word something else. That's just probability.